But right, let's crack on. Welcome everybody to the first virtual meeting of the East Ilsley Parish Council in 2021. Can't believe it's 2021, but ho-hum. We had to postpone it sadly from 12th of January due to commitments of various councils, so apologies to everybody for that if they were expecting us there. Item 1, to receive and consider for accepting apologies for absence from members of the council. Have we got any, Fen?
None.
Splendid, we are all here. Item 2, to consider the co-option of a new councillor to join the parish council, Mr. Michael Pembroke.
That's me.
Oh, there. Oh, right. My goodness. Excellent. Fabulous. So, Michael, you've apparently got up to 3 minutes to give us a view. No repetition, obviously. Hesitation.
Oh, yeah. No pressure.
All the usual skills. You don't obviously have to use them all, but if you just briefly want to tell the councillors in the meeting why you'd like to take up this august role as a parish councillor in East Ilsley, we're all ears.
Okay. Well, I've been in the village now for 2.5 years, just over 2.5 years. And I'm a secondary school teacher. I teach in Reading. And, you know, throughout my kind of life, I've always kind of taken on kind of roles responsibility. So at school, I'm head of year 12. Which, you know, as I said, I like taking on roles of responsibility, helping the community, etc. And obviously that job will help a lot within the local Woodley community that our school is in. I've got kind of experience in working in committees before as well, because I used to work at the Newbury District Badminton Association. So I'm a badminton player, and I was a secretary on that for 15 years, helping run the district badminton leagues, etc. But I finished that just over a year ago, and then felt like I wanted, you know, something else to kind of fill, I say in my time, not that I've got loads of time, but I wanted to have a bit more kind of involvement in something else. And, you know, we've only been here for, you know, 2.5 years, but I feel like in that short time, well, I know that in that short time, I've really felt kind of, I don't know, just a real connection to the place, and I really want to get involved and help in any way that I can. So I obviously saw the advert for a role in the committee and the parish council. So I spoke to my wife and said, you know, do you think this is a good idea, etc. And she was fully behind it. And I mean, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but true. But it's something that I said because I come from Chapel Row. That's where my family lives, so very local. And I used to start help with litter picks and stuff around there, and kind of get a bit involved that way. But you know, not very much. But I feel like I should be doing more to kind of help the community. So yeah, so that's kind of the reason why I want to get involved. Just as I said, you know, help the local community and get to know people in my local community a bit more. Yeah, so there you go.
Fabulous. Thank you, Mike. Anyone got any particular questions for Mike?
No.
Oh, no. Sounds good.
Yeah, excellent. All sounds good to me.
So can I seek someone to propose Mike to join the council?
Yeah.
I'll propose
Mike. A seconder?
Well,
Tracy seconding. All those in favour?
Yay.
Yeah.
In my hand, there we go. Excellent. Welcome to the council, Mike.
Thank you.
Somehow we've got to get you to sign a form in front of us or something, haven't we, Fen?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, this is a bit like presidential executive order. I expect you to hold it up.
Indeed, I shall.
In a 45 style manner.
I think it's Doctor Who background you've got.
Is it? I wasn't sure if it was water, which I thought might be appropriate for the pond consideration. The fact it's over my head. Fabulous. So excellent. So welcome to the council. Are we now full, Fen?
Yeah.
Good. Now waiting lists will be started for all those who've just missed out. Just missed out. Brilliant. It's really good news, Mike. So honestly, genuinely welcome, and thank you so much for doing it. Mostly, I think you will enjoy it.
I'll hold you to that.
As with all things, Right, item 3, to receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests or non-registrable interests by members or the clerk, and to consider any requests for dispensations. Practically Thomas Hardy, I tell you. Anyone got anything? No?
Nope.
No?
No.
No.
That's a no from everybody, I think, Ben. Racing through by this date will be done in 10 minutes. To receive questions or comments from members of the public regarding items on the agenda or representations from any of the public member who has declared a personal interest. So have we got anyone who wants to ask a question? Have we got 6 minutes on this, Fen, or is it slightly more?
It's sort of 10 minutes with the addition of a further 5 if we need it, at your discretion.
Let's not. Anyone got any questions or anything they'd like to ask? Are we finding any questioners? No? Okay, well, we've got one more go at that, I think, anyway, so if something comes up. Item 5, to approve the minutes of virtual planning meeting of Parish Council meeting on Tuesday, the 1st of December 2020. Has anyone noticed any errors or anything they would like amended?
No.
No, that's a no from everyone, I think. So, Fen, we can take those as an accurate record. And the next item, item 7, Caroline, you still on your call?
Matters arising, sorry?
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Don't think we've got any.
No.
Just to let you know, well, Nick will talk about it in the flood thing, but the SIL fund application, which was action 6 from the meeting, has been completed.
Thank you.
Have all the other bits and bobs done, so we can tick that box. So it's all good.
Excellent. Thank you, Fen. Right, item 7. Yes. Report from our district councillor, Caroline Culbert. Caroline, over to you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just on the tail end of another call. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
So I think this is the 4th time I've delivered this report to the parish council, so I'm kind of getting sick of the sound of my own voice. But anyway, hopefully it will be interesting to you guys, even if it isn't to me. There's been a lot of complaints about dog's mess on Abingdon Road, and today Steve went out and put a load more stickers up. So I think there's 9 stickers now along Abingdon Road about dog's mess. So one would hope that people will see those and abide by it. Somebody's also asked whether it'd be possible to have a dog bin along Abingdon Road. And I'm not sure whether that's something the parish council can take upon itself to do, or whether the district has to install one.
We have the power to do it. West Berks do not have any more capabilities and adding to their pickup run. So we would need to employ a separate contractor.
Okay. So I'll pass that on to you as something that's been raised with me. Yeah. I've got 5 or 6 more dog stickers if anyone wants any. But I've noticed actually going out for walks, it's been particularly bad recently. I don't know if it's the same person or a couple of people, but along Abingdon Road's pretty disgusting, really.
Yeah, I saw that on Sunday as well. And also going up the track to the left of Huey's yard, some idiots put loads of dog crap in their bags and hung them on trees again. And it's like, they're never going to go and pick them up. So it makes it even worse, to be fair.
Yeah.
Maybe we put something on the Facebook thing about people hanging crap in trees.
Yeah, I was down at Thatcher Nature Discovery Centre once, and someone bagged some up in a blue bag and then slung it into the bushes in front of me. And it's like, what's the point of doing that? It would actually be better to just sling the dog muck into the bushes in the hope that it might
exactly
down rather than bag it up
under a tree and put it in a bag.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, as you know by now, the Sunrise Business Units application was rejected by the council. Whether or not they come back with an alternative remains to be seen. I've got no reason to think they will. I've not heard anything from them at all. The vaccine rollout, Fen will know about this because Fen comes along to our weekly COVID volunteer coordinator meetings on a Friday. And as you're probably aware, local over 80-year-olds are being invited to go to the racecourse to have a jab as part of the primary care network that the Downland practice are part of. And there's been a little bit of confusion in recent days because some people are getting letters from the NHS saying, do you want to go to Marlow Mass Vaccination Centre instead? So West Berkshire Council had a meeting last night called the Local Outbreak Board. And one of the NHS guys there said that he wanted to reassure people that if you decided to go to Marlow because you just wanted to get on and have the jab, when the GP surgery go to look on their centralised database and see that you've had your jab in Marlow, they then wouldn't bother to invite you to the racecourse. So they're trying to provide reassurance that there isn't going to be any mess ups and duplication and so on. But, you know, life isn't perfect. So there probably will be instances where people get a bit confused about where they should go for their jab. But I would urge people, look at the Downland Practice website. On their homepage in the left-hand column, they've got a link to their news stories, and they do update that fairly regularly about what they're up to at the racecourse.
So if they go to Marlow for their first one, will they have to go back to Marlow for their second one?
That's an excellent question, and I don't know the answer. I can find out for you.
Yeah, I think that's quite key, to be fair.
Yeah.
Caroline, the other way round to the question you answered, so they would know if the GPs would know if you went to Marlow, but equally, as NHS England have been sending these letters out, will they be aware for the second jab whether or not you had it at the surgery if you didn't have it at Marlow, or haven't they got that far yet?
Well, the NHS guy who was on the Local Outbreak Board call last night, he said they've got a centralised information system that everyone can refer to. But, you know, knowing the NHS, not to criticise them in any way, shape or form, because we're lucky to even have any vaccinations, you know, it is a massive task, and I think there are bound to be a few hiccups along the way. But I've been in touch with the practice manager about various concerns that residents have raised with me, and he has been responsive to my emails. But no, Stephen, your question is an excellent one. I don't know the answer to that, and I'll try and find out. Yeah. So yeah, that rolls along. But I mean, I know people in other areas of the country are telling me that 70-year-olds have had 2 jabs already, and you know, why has the over 80-year-olds around here not had it? And it's basically because all of the GP surgeries had to work out how they could work together to deliver it, because the Pfizer vaccine, once it comes out of the deep freeze, has to be used within 2 to 3 days. So the GP had to be able to say to the NHS, yes, we can sign a contract, we can get it done in the time frame needed. There's no saying they didn't have enough people and it all goes in the bin. So that's why there's been a bit of a delay.
Well, I think Slough is like the UK leader in vaccinations of 80-year-olds.
Okay.
It was on BBC this morning. So I think Slough like done an amazing job.
Yeah.
You're going to be doing different cohorts down the list now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it's just a little bit patchy. It's, you know, going at different rates in different parts of the country, basically. But if you've got any questions, let me know. Andrew's obviously involved with Health Watch. Fen is your representative in East Ilsley for the COVID volunteers group. So if you speak to one of the 3 of us, I'm sure we can try and get a sensible answer.
Caroline, the only thing I haven't had the chance to get any sensible answers to, which I think is pertinent, is obviously if we're asking elderly folks to get down to the race course, and sometimes relatively short notice.
Yeah.
If they're having problems with transport, have Downland sort of said what someone should do if they're going to get stuck with for one reason or another, or are we hoping our emergency committee volunteers and colleagues will pitch in? Is there any kind of methodology in terms of what someone should do?
There's no formal transport network that's been set up, so people are allowed to take a helper with them. If they can get a lift down there, somebody can go with them, but that's obviously up to the individual as to whether they want to mingle with somebody in a car in confined space. But they also said in one of the updates on the Downland Practice website that they will be mopping up, and that's their use of language, not mine, people in the coming months who can't get to the racecourse, which is a very, very imprecise, you know, how long is a piece of string? You know, in the coming months could mean anything.
Well,
So
I think, again, it'll be more like when the Oxford vaccine gets to the GP surgery, because they're currently doing care homes. But I think obviously if you do need a lift, you know, it's masks on for both people. Try and keep the windows open because ventilation is absolutely key. But I do just wonder, Fen and Mike, if we can just potentially message our team to say, look, there might be a chance that someone may at short notice say they need to get to the racecourse. My understanding is they're vaccinating twice a week. And this all comes back to the fact that the Pfizer vaccine comes out in groups of 975, which they have to try and use, and it gets delivered in the whole bulk, doesn't it? So that's hence why they're trying to do it all on one day. But they have managed to get an extra set of jabs out of each. It was meant to be 5. I think they're getting 6, so that helps hugely. And I'm also assured they're not wasting any, so they have got backup lists as well. But I suppose really if there are any 80-year-olds come the end of the week who haven't heard anything, we really should be telling the volunteers or getting some info to Fen to see if we can chase things up, because they are contacting people by phone, text, not necessarily letter, is my understanding, because there is
letters are going out. Yeah, they're sending out first-class letters after they've made a phone call. Okay,
so let's just keep our eye on that, I think. Thank you, Caroline.
And the other thing, in terms of getting lifts down there, we've discussed this at the COVID volunteer meeting. We need to be really clear with people that if you offer somebody a lift, you're doing it as a friend or neighbour, not as a formal service, because people are not insured to drive people around as part of a formal service. So you have to really impress that upon the individual, because what we don't want is a situation where someone's car crashes and then someone tries to sue them and says, I thought you were an official NHS driver, you weren't properly insured, you know. So you just need to, if you want to help someone out, great, but do impress upon them that you're doing it as a friend or neighbour. All these things get quite complicated, but these, I think Fen will agree, these meetings we've been having every Friday have been really, really useful to thrash this sort of stuff out. You know, and we've been able to say to the doctor's surgery, please make sure that the letters include a map of how to get to the racecourse, which, you know, kind of sounds obvious, but I've been to the racecourse before and got lost and driven round and round in circles. So, you know, if you're 80 years old and you're still driving and you've never been there before, you might get really confused about where to go. And apparently the letter has got a good map in it. So
thank you, Caroline.
Yeah, we might be might be able to do a flyer, I think, for the local community, just to make them aware that, because it's going to go, isn't it? Over 80s, over 70s, over 60s, vulnerable. So
high risk,
to make people available that they can contact the local team. And maybe also as well, worth it, Fen, talking about it out loud, is the warning about the spoof messages and the fake messages, because people are being texted and called and given links to the websites that aren't NHS websites, and they're harvesting contact information. So there's still some unscrupulous people out there in this time. So
yeah, definitely. And people have been ringing people up saying, if you pay me money, I'll get you a jab quicker.
Yeah, I know. Scammers.
Yeah. People, it's free, you know.
Yeah. No, thank you.
And then on to more mundane matters. The local plan, West Berkshire local plan, is out for consultation at the moment, and the deadline is the 5th of February. So I've mentioned before that the government issued a white paper a few months ago about planning regulations, saying that they were going to make it easier for developers to get planning permission in the future. So we are impressing upon people the need to look at the local plan consultation and participate, because if these new regulations come in and it's easier for people to get planning application, all they've got to do is go through the local plan, tick boxes in the local plan, and then they get the permission. So they might not be able to come, you guys might not be able to come to me and say, we want to call this in. I might say to you, well, actually it ticks all the boxes in the local plan, so it's too late, we can't do anything. Yeah. So that's why it's really important to get people involved in this process of consultation, because it's basically the planning Bible for the council, and it will be in existence until 2037. And once it's, you know, the ink is dry on it, then we've got it for the next 17 years. So we need to make sure it's right. It's not the most exciting document in the world, but I would encourage people to go online and have a look. And if there's particular things you're passionate about, like, you know, social housing, biodiversity, green space, whatever, go in and have a look at those particular issues and do give feedback to the council. I mean, it may be that the government don't go ahead with the white paper, who knows? but there was all sorts of talk of people being able to extend houses, build things higher, turn business units into housing with very few caveats. So yeah, could be difficult in the future. There's also a public consultation about the redevelopment of Newbury Town Centre, and that ends at the end of January. So Fen should have had a link through from West Berkshire Council about that if you haven't seen it already. They basically want to do an overhaul of the town centre. Obviously town centres are under threat, not just because of COVID, but online shopping and that kind of thing. So the guys that are involved in that they've got in as consultants seem pretty good. They seem to have their heads screwed on. 2,500 people apparently already have responded to that consultation.
I have.
I have.
Great. And they're very, very keen to hear from more young people because they've got demographic data that shows that not many young people have responded so far. So if you have any teenagers, early 20s, do let them know about it. Green garden bin collection's been suspended until the end of this month because Veolia are struggling to deal with all the waste. As you'll be aware, we put our green bins out on Friday and they didn't get emptied until yesterday. So it's just the green garden waste bin that they won't empty until the end of January.
So they are doing the recycling, the tins and bottles and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that is it from me. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Caroline.
Question on the recycling. So I take it we don't have to separate everything anymore because they seem to take everything because it goes into the same machine, doesn't it?
No, it goes into different bits on the van because people have asked me about this before. Because people have said to me, oh, we've watched the van and they just sling it all in the same place, but they've reassured
I've seen them.
different bits. Yeah, I mean, the recycling guys at West Berks reckon it goes into different parts of the lorry. They've shown me a diagram of the lorry and said this bit goes in here and that bit goes in there and so on. So, I mean, that's what they've told me.
And they will refuse to take it, which they've done in the past where
Yeah.
things get mixed. So
Even though I hear what Stephen's saying, I did see them on when they came out. Was it Monday? I was coming out of the drive and they just looked like they were just dumping it into a wheelie bin and then flipping it up into the truck. But as you say, you know, you are right. Andrew is right. I've done it before where I've made an error and put the wrong stuff in the wrong box and they haven't taken it. They've just left the box. So.
Yeah.
So yes, probably better stick with it. Anyone else got any questions for Caroline?
No.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Caroline. Hope it wasn't
Okay.
too dull for you.
No, you're
Maybe
very
the
welcome.
fourth time.
And I'll get an answer to your question, Stephen, about the vaccines.
That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Item 8. Discuss, comment and approve the draft report from our planning consultant, Charlotte Grant from Harwood Sabin regarding Purbright. Has everyone had a chance to have a read through this? It's
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a look through it.
pretty comprehensive. Charlotte, can I just throw this open to you for any sort of general comments you'd like to make to see if we can then tease any questions that people may have?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things to update you on. First of all, I contacted the planning officer, Simon Till, just to get an update from him as to where matters are at, because the applicant had gotten an extension of time up to the end of December to submit additional information, and obviously that deadline had passed, and there was a hint that the application would be going to planning committee in the middle of this month, but obviously that planning committee was cancelled, I understand. And apparently the case officer has changed because Simon Till is now working as team leader, so we've got a new case officer at West Berks called Lydia Mather. Now she's awaiting some additional information, updated landscape visual impact assessment, additional flood risk assessment and drainage information. The ecologist is still in the process of responding. They've had some further viability review work undertaken, and that demonstrates a need for the submission of more complete information. And they're also waiting for a response from planning policy. once some further discussions over viability have been concluded. So there's still a lot of discussion and quite a lot of additional information to come through from the applicant. So we're by no means there yet. I do think in terms of our report, now is a good time to get that in, because what I am conscious of is there's some issues in there that we don't want to leave until the last minute. There's some issues that we've flagged, particularly in respect of conservation, that officers haven't yet picked up on. And I did hint to Simon Till when I spoke to him on the telephone a couple of months ago that we had some concerns regarding impact on the conservation area, and he said, interesting, not something that we've considered at this stage, but would be very interested to hear what you've got to say. So I think now is the time we need to get those in so that we can give the council time to give due consideration to go back to the applicant for more information. So I think at this stage that's really important. So that would be one thing I'd say. The other thing, I'm aware of the recent refusal at Ilsley Farm, and I think that it would be quite useful to draw some parallels. I've read through the committee report and the decision notice from that application and had a quick look at it, and I think that it would be useful to do a quick check through that application and to draw across some parallels between the two and just cross-reference, just to give our case a little bit more weight in some areas. So in terms of traffic in particular, and also the AONB and landscape visual impact issues, I think that there's some parallels we can draw in there which would be quite useful. So I'd like to suggest that, with your agreement, that we go back and revisit that briefly. It shouldn't take too much time to do. But other than that, I would welcome any comments that anybody has in terms of the issues that we've covered, whether anybody would like anything further addressed or clarified at this stage, whether there's anything that needs to be changed.
Anyone got any comments?
No, it seemed quite in depth to me. I mean, it was a long read, but no, it was.
I've got a lot of material. I mean, it's a big application.
Yeah.
And I think what we have to focus on is the issues that are pertinent to the parish, rather than the very general issues. Yes, Fan?
Well, sorry, I read it a couple of weeks ago. So can we just did we talk about the impact on the sort of listed heritage buildings in our village?
Yes, we did.
Ramifications of traffic around the one-way system.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
So just to be clear then, Charlotte, there was 3 attachments that I've seen, and all 3 are being submitted as objections. Is that correct? Because they cover different areas.
It came in 3 sections because of the way that my system splits the document up. But yes, there was the introductory section, then you received a table, which was just the way I laid it out. So I took the policy HSA 23 and I took each section, which is what the planning officer will be considering the proposals against, broadly speaking, and basically undertook his assessment exercise for him and said, right, is the proposal acceptable on the basis of this, and went through each item as a checklist. And so that was the table in the middle, and then any additional items that I felt were worthy of covering in the context of the parish. So we had a section on air quality, we had a commentary on the impact on heritage assets, and then we had a brief section on yes, it was just heritage and air quality that I followed up on after the policy schedule. Everything else was covered in the policy schedule.
No, it's fine, because I read the first one and then thought there's nothing about traffic in here, and then I found that in another one. So I'm happy now, having looked at all of them, that we've covered the areas that we discussed previously. So that's good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I just think I can feed into that with some cross-referencing to this very recent decision, which will give the case more weight, in the fact that particularly on the issue of traffic onto Cow Lane, and
Yes.
the fact that the officer in the Ilsley Farm application has referenced traffic impact there, and that gives this case more weight with regard to, for example, the pinch point on Cow Lane.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah, so from your experience, what would you say was a likely outcome?
It is very difficult to say, because we have a housing shortage in this country, and this is an application that is essentially the government applying for planning permission
From itself.
in its most basic sense. However, it is riding roughshod over a policy application that has been tested by a government employed inspector through a local plan process, through an allocation process for a number of units on a site. So that number of units has been examined in great detail and then completely ignored by the applicant. So I think there is a reasonable chance of the council, unless the applicant can come up with a very good argument on viability, to override all the other issues with the application, of which I believe that there are a number, including the landscape impact, because you're in an area of outstanding natural beauty. There is traffic impact, there are heritage issues, there are a whole range of other issues that need to be overcome, there are ecology issues. Unless they can demonstrate that there is an overriding need to effectively override that harm, then I can't see that the planning authority could necessarily grant planning permission for this, because it's just totally ignoring their policy. Yes, Fen?
So Compton's Parish Council have submitted their neighbourhood development plan. It went to consultation stage. I think it closed on the 21st of December.
Yeah.
Will that be taken into consideration? Because I understand rules around planning are slightly stronger when those plans are in place and approved.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's a very late stage in the day. So yes, that will be taken into account. Yeah.
Anyone else got any more comments, or are we in agreement with Charlotte's recommendations?
Yeah.
Everyone?
Yeah.
I think it sounds like an eminently sensible way to proceed, because I think, again, it's almost impossible to call what's going to happen when the government is managing the government's own applications, and who knows which way they're going to go, whether they're going to actually stick to their own rules or not. It seems to be very fluid, but I think this is the best chance of us really highlighting the major objections to something on this scale, when the original application was nowhere near that sort of size, and how it will dramatically change certainly the way the village operates for not only the years of construction, but potentially forever. So, you know, I think it's really important that that message goes back, that, you know, the planning team, etc., need to give this some really careful thought, because although it seems only a couple of hundred houses in the great scheme of 300,000 a year is neither here nor there, as a percentage of the housing stock locally, it's enormous. It's absolutely enormous. So
And I think the traffic is, I mean, I'm even seeing where I am, obviously on the corner. I'm literally seeing agricultural vehicles this week where they're having to reverse, go back again to get round the corner because their trailers are far too long. So we don't have the fabric in this village to be able to cope on a roadway, you know, in terms of the traffic management, as well as the type of trucks and you know, building materials that are going to be coming through here. I keep saying that they are not going to go Hampstead Norris way. They're coming here. We're so easy to get to the A34 north and south. So you can absolutely see it. We have to slam it down, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, I have an issue, and I've always said I have an issue with, you know, the amount of houses and the traffic impact for East Ilsley. Whereas for the Dyson development, I've always been for it. And I'm just amazed that that was rejected, because I actually don't see, I see the real benefit for the village for having something like that done. And if Compton gets passed and that gets rejected, then I don't see the logic behind it.
No, agreed.
At all.
Agreed.
So if Compton gets passed, then surely, you know, the Dyson application will go back in again and it'll go through, which great, I'm happy about that. But I don't understand the logic behind any of the planning decisions at all.
No, if they're at all consistent, you would think they would follow one decision with the similar one.
Yeah.
Going forward, but I suppose it is in the lap of the god. One last thing is, when do we think this might end up at any kind of decision? And it's a bit crystal bally.
No information yet from the council, Andrew. I've asked Simon Till to keep me updated, but there's no indication yet about when it's going to come to Western area.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Anyone else got anything else on this one?
I think Neil would like to ask a question.
Okay.
I'm actually coming from an outsider perspective here, but and I'm new to the village, but I have worked in road transportation and civil engineering for a number of years back in South Africa. And what I'm seeing here strategically is that where East Ilsley is located in terms of the A34, any development to the east of us is going to have an impact, a traffic impact. It always will. So we're always going to be in this situation. It's not going to go until there's some kind of a road hierarchy established and implemented before they propose any future development to the east of us. Because they can't, to me, it's illogical to proceed with any kind of development to the east of us and cause a real bottleneck and then have to do reactive type of planning for road network. So my query is that, is there a road framework in place for this area?
Charlotte, I don't know if you've got anything you can add.
No, I'm not aware. No, it's something that I would have to come back to you on.
Yeah, because you hear what I'm saying, is that we'll always be seen as obstructive, when in fact this situation where we're located is never going to go away. Anyone to the east, whatever development they do, is going to have most likely have a traffic impact on us.
Neil, there was some discussions years ago before I joined the parish council about turning the road in front of the pub back into a two-way road rather than one way, and that would kind of like assist with traffic coming through and the buses and all that kind of stuff. And I think there were some discussions years ago about that happening, but I've no idea where that went. Andrew, I think you probably know a bit more about that.
I think it was looked into, but I think the district council went for the cheaper option of keeping it as it is and altering the lozenge slightly outside the pub to the current confusing junction we currently have, with people going the wrong way and the wrong way up the high street and turning round the triangle by the pond. I mean, you know, I think one of the things that will come out of this is that we really do need transport guys to come out and have another look at this, whether it's the two-way thing or just slightly altering because we've basically got on a daily basis lots of cars and vehicles going the wrong way in many different directions, and it's only a matter of time before we end up with a serious road crash, and who knows what goes with it. And the fact we know this is happening probably should preempt that. So let's see. So if we've covered everything off, I think we'll say thank you to Charlotte, and if you come up with any new hot information, do get it round to us, and we look forward to hearing once it's gone in, once you've had this final look at the East Ilsley Barn Farms application.
And I just reiterate something very quickly that Councillor Culver said, which I would totally agree with, which is comments on the local plan. Get those comments in and really encourage people to comment, because a lot of planning reform is slipping through at the moment behind the guise of COVID being in the public domain, and local authorities all over the place, bits and pieces of legislation are going through left, right and centre. Lots of changes to the use classes order, to planning legislation in general, we're seeing take place, and people are just missing them. So it's really important that local communities are staying engaged on the local level as well, because these things are going to have massive implications in sort of a year or so's time, when the world starts to get back to normal, hopefully. So I can just, as a consultant, I can only reiterate that. Please do make comments.
Yeah, and Charlotte, if there's anything particular that you think might be pertinent to East Ilsley around that, if there's any, because obviously you know which particular sections people maybe need to have a look at, that might be really helpful to send to Fen, and then she can perhaps put it on our Facebook page or something. Brilliant. Thank you very, very much for that, Charlotte, and thanks for all your work on this. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, and have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right. Item 9, everybody. To consider the following planning application, Yew Tree, Compton Road, Mr. and Mrs. Hartley. Has everyone had a quick look through the plans?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anyone got any particular objections or comments or anything they'd like to ask? Have we got anyone from the actual applicants here? Or?
Yeah, they are here. There's John. Hi, John.
Hi, Fen. Hi, everyone. Sorry, we were all set for last week and forgot about tonight until your message came. So thank you for the prompt.
Excellent. Has anyone got any questions in particular on the application?
No.
No, all good.
All good.
No, I can't really see I have. So is there anything, John, you want to tell us, or anything that, or is it just kind of is as it is on the piece of paper?
Yeah, I can give a bit of context. So there's an old garage there which is really damp and kind of very mouldy. So the main aim is to replace what's there. We're going to make the footprint slightly bigger, and mainly because we've got 3 kids, we want to have space for bike storage and things like that. And there's currently a big white garage door on the front of it that you can see from the road, and we want to change that to be a bit more in keeping with the house, so to put some kind of ceramic tiles on it and to replace it with a window. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's relevant. Yeah, those are probably the main points, but that's the intention.
Okay. So in that case, what are our options again on this, Fen? I ought to get this.
So it's support or object.
Yeah. So all those supporting, please indicate. Excellent.
We do have the opportunity to give any additional comments. So if you don't have any, I will just say all in favour with no further comments.
Has anyone got any comment they'd like? No.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think so. That's through. So that appears to have gone through unanimously, Fen.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
So John, what will happen is I'll fill in our parish observation sheet and tick the box support and no objections, and I'll email that to the planning team tomorrow morning for you.
All right, that's clear. Thanks, Fen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, everybody. Item 10, the tricky stuff. The Parish Council Budget Proposal 2021-22. Fen, do you want to quickly sort of talk us through this? As
Yep, if it's all right with you, can I share my screen?
of course.
Please.
Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so what we've got here is all of our financial software categories split into income and expenditure. And these, what I've given you is what we spent in 2020 at the end, what we approved last year, so for the budget we're currently in, where we are as of today in terms of our spend, so this current, and then the last column is projected. Now that is going on a kind of annual rate of inflation for some services, and kind of confirmation of what repeat payments will be, as much as I can garner. Now I have obviously given you little kind of comments here. So there are some ideas. So here we got £333 for the playground from Waitrose token scheme. So I pondered whether we could apply for another one for the pond. As you know, we've had a big spend. So we've had a lot of VAT come back. So we are at the moment, we've already had one lot back. So in the end of March, we'll be applying for our next lot. So we are going to be looking at about another £4,000 VAT coming back. But so next year we are only, because there's no grants really, and there's no, we haven't got a big playground project, and we, you know, everything's kind of COVID based. Our income is pretty low next year, estimated at about 6.3k. Now, when you go through what our actual projected expenditure is, taking into consideration inflation, me becoming a qualified clerk, you know, which would have implication on HMRC, PAYE, etc. We could be looking at needing to spend next year just over £24,500. So what the precept is to fill the gap for us. So 24,700, take away my predicted income, gives us a current precept request amount of £18,335. We obviously asked for 14,430 last year, so this is just shy of a 4k increase. I know councils that have doubled their precept this year because they've lost income through village halls and such like, and really can't pay for these services and amenities. So this is quite tame in comparison. What I have done is popped in £5,000 under the pond. You can see that if we ask for, I'll just change it live for you, but we know we're looking at about 25,000 for the cost of the pond. If we change, I'll put 250, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
That's more a water park.
Obviously that would mean we'd spend 44,700, which means we'd need to ask for a precept of 38. I mean, that's crazy. I think that would be really detrimental to people's finances in the village. So yeah, having knocked that down to 5, it does bring us into quite a nice, a more reasonable figure. One thing with precepts is by general rule, they don't go down. It is considered bad practice. I do know of one council that are asking for a 0 precept this year, that they had an awful lot of reserves. So they are kind of doing a favour for 1 year only, and then it's back to normal in 2022, 2023. So people can play around with our options, but I think for safety, we'd be quite good just about here. So it's really what you think of it. Do you have any massive queries, bugbears, anything scaring you? Do you want me to change any figures so you could see how that would affect the spreadsheet? And essentially today we have to make a decision.
Fen, my kind of comment, and possibly, you know, it might have been easier if we'd have done the pond first rather than the budget, but that's only hindsight. Put 5, but is there a reason it isn't 10 or isn't 3, or I'm trying to, what's the rationale of 5 based on what we know?
So we've got 10 in the pot.
Yeah.
If we get 5 through the precept, that takes us to 15.
Yeah.
That gets us the cost of excavation.
Okay, so that leaves us with a little bit of do-it-yourself work.
That leaves us with the drying, and
Yeah.
then it's the taking away, and that's where the extra is £680 a lorry.
Okay, and what's the total on the taking away and drying as per quotes roughly?
That's 7,500.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm wondering whether, and again, I'm only talking, so feel free to comment, guys. If we're increasing it by 5, why aren't we increasing it by 8.5, which might not be the whole cost of the excavation and the drying, but at least acknowledges that, you know, if we do a DIY option or get some grants in or something like this. I mean, in a perfect world, we'll find a grant, or we'll persuade West Berkshire Council to actually do the decent thing, which seems unlikely, but we live in hope.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, anyone?
I would have loved the village to get more people completing that questionnaire, because obviously we would be great to get a village appetite to this, a feeling on the direction of travel, because obviously that is quite a large increase based on last year. And it would be good to get a vibe from the village about, you know, we're in unprecedented territory financially. There's a lot of households in the family that are suffering financially. So by lifting it from 14 to 21, it would have been great to get a bit more material evidence from the village about their thinking and their thoughts about where we're going, because we're effectively, in the nicest possible way, working for them.
Well, I agree with you on this, Brendan, but I think the big thing here is people are like, we're all confused as to who is ultimately responsible for this, and everyone's like, well, why should we pay for it? We pay our taxes, blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. And to raise the precept, they're gonna be like, well, why should we? Why shouldn't the roads pay for it? Which, you know, all these different angles to explain it in lots of different ways. I think we're in a bit of a no-win situation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate to say, but I think we are, because I don't need to be paying for it.
No, and I think there's 2 things here. One, the argument I currently do have with West Berkshire Council on this whole programme is, you know, on major works, wherever they happen to be, they operate on the basis that the cost is split between the 155,000 residents of West Berkshire.
Yeah.
You know, so we don't have the people of Donington paying for Robin Hood Roundabout or Lord knows what else. You know, it's split between all the taxpayers. Whereas on this one, where it seems the silt tends to come off the roads because that's how the systems, you know, we're being asked to not only pay our council tax, which is not insignificant, but we're now also being asked to pay again for this. So hence, you know, my deep-seated problems with the whole issue of the pond. But equally, from a practical point of view, we've equally got issues of flooding, which, bearing in mind, there's about, I don't know, a dozen flood warnings out tonight. Not necessarily around here, but you're going to see pictures in the next week of lots of houses being flooded. Were we to not potentially try and mitigate this in a year's time, 2 years' time, you really want people saying, why didn't you do anything? You've just spent, you know, a lot of money on a playground because it was important for a part of the village. You know, equally when it comes to something logistic organisational like this, which is quite key.
I mean, Andrew, actually going on that, I think you might have hit on something which could be good for us. Can we not get a report that says if we don't do this, this is what happens to the village, and these are the financial implications for the village if we don't do this, and we use that to go back to West Berks Council and say, look, this is going to be the cost implication if we don't do this. We've covered what we should be doing as a parish council by looking into the risk, which, to be honest, it should be done by our other agencies. If we get a report done that says, right, if we don't do it, this is the implication and this is the cost.
Can I just, I'm jumping in here and I'm going to not screen share for a second, just because it's not quite on the order of the agenda. But Nick, do you want to just unmute yourself? Somehow. It's not working.
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you. I think it might be a good time now just to tell you what Nick and I have done and sent to the council, which Caroline's read and verified for me, because it could answer all our problems. But again, it's a great risk to us if we don't get it. So Nick, do you want to just explain, or are you happy to do that?
Yeah, just very briefly, and it was in my report, but it came at the tail end of my preparing the report that FEN identified the West Berkshire Infrastructure Levy opportunity, who do make funds available for certain infrastructure projects, and we feel that the work to the Ilsley Pond could be very easily classed as an infrastructure project. FEN put a huge amount of work into preparing the original submission. Both Caroline and I cast our eye over it. And I think, to Stephen's point, in the opening introduction, we did address some of the issues that you've raised in terms of the risk to the village and to the livelihoods of people and their lives indeed, not just the livelihood, but their lives as well, as evidenced the last time we had a flood. And there is good reason as to why West Berkshire should give this due consideration. My view is that, and I think Caroline shared the view, that it was a well put together application. It did make the points, both in terms of risk to flooding, but also to enhance the village and to create something that would be of value to the children of the village, to have something like a nature walk and an opportunity for kids to engage in the outside world, especially after COVID. So it could be the answer to our prayers. We could get the required level of funding that we need, which would avoid us having to increase the precept and to go begging elsewhere. But I do think that there is merit, as has been suggested, that we're the victims of other people's activity that result in the pond silting up, and maybe we should go in pursuit of those that cause the issue and seek some form of redress that would allow us to get some funding from that. We're not talking about a king's ransom in the overall scheme of things, but we are talking about £10,000 that we could add to our £10,000 and get the situation resolved. The longer term issue, though, this would only resolve the issue for now, and this issue will return in several years' time, and we're back to where we are again. So let's not escape the fact that today's remedy could still be tomorrow's issue. Mm-hmm. But I applaud FEN for identifying the source and for taking the time and effort and all the other things that she does to actually put together what I thought was a very compelling case to support our claim. Where we are and when we will hear about that, I have no idea.
Okay, so I've had receipt from the SIL funding team that they have received our report, received before the deadline as well, which was the 10th of January. They have confirmed that they will be working on this month, and we will hear by the end of January if our bid has been successful. Now, I've bid for 56% of the overall cost of the project, because I had to report to them we have £10,000 in earmarked reserves. We have 1,000 from Caroline's COVID recovery fund, and we need 25,000. So yeah, I have asked for, I think it's about 14,700 out of the £500,000 levy fund that they are offering to projects in West Berkshire. 14 pages long, lots of photographs of flooding and issues, and every single element of the report has been linked to a local plan policy, a core strategy policy. I have read so many policies from West Berks that I think it was pretty strong. Caroline, do you want to just comment?
Yeah, it's great. It's a monumental piece of work. So congratulations to Fen for doing that. The only other one I'm aware of is one from West Ilsley from this village. So obviously there's £500,000 up for grabs, as Fen mentioned. So it just depends really, I think, how many people around the district have made an application.
Yeah.
But there's 2 from this ward. Yeah.
But so what I'm trying to consider and trying to portray is that by adding £5,000 into our precept, it allows us to do the excavation work from the funds we've already got, but we might get this 14,500 from West Berks, but I can't propose a budget to you on a what if, because I don't know the answer. And what I would hate to do is put 0 in and then not get this grant either, and then find us scrappling around for cash and draining our reserves and flooding. I'm in a bit of a rock and a hard place.
So the question I've got to ask then is if we did the excavation work, would they have any reason to say that they wouldn't give us the money because we've already done the work? Or is the fact that the application's in and it will just get processed regardless of whether we've done the work before we get the money?
Okay, it's like all grant applications, we're not allowed to, they won't pay for any work we've already done.
Okay.
So we have said in our application that spring is the best time to do this, because of the reeds and because the long hot summer hopefully will help dry out the silt, which will limit the amount of time it's lying on the land, and then will allow us to then organise trucks for the end of the summer before the rains come again to take away that silt and clear the farmland. So we have given them, in part of this application was a timeline of expectations. And we
because what I'm getting to with my concern is that I haven't been on the council very long, but I know the council's been talking about this for a couple of years, about the need and risk of flooding and risk of damage to people's properties and stuff, and the fact that we actually do need to get something done as quickly as possible. But if we are kind of, we kind of almost need to sort of commit to a timeline to say that this will be resolved by this summer one way or t'other. But I guess that do you take the raising of the precept on board as well as while you're hedging your bets on the grant, and then allow everybody to say that there will be more money, so there'll be a lower precept next year? It's that open and frank discussion with people, isn't it, to see what we do to say, but we can't, like I say, you can't speculate on a what if, so you can't budget on a what if. So we do need to sort of make some funds available to do this work in this next year, because of the risk that has been identified in the village, because we might have a mild winter this year, we might not get one next year, so we can't afford to do that. So.
I mean, I just feel by the 5k predicted in the budget at the minute would allow us to do some work, remedial work, if we don't get this grant. If we get this grant, you know, it's brilliant, and it will also allow us to rebuild the earmark reserves for the next few years, because there'll be extra money.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned it a couple of meetings ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, Fen, but we did mention that this was going to be a reoccurring thing, as Nick has highlighted again, and we need to make sure that we are budgeted for this on a 3-5 year cycle, whatever we think that is a reasonable thing to do. We probably need advice from contractors and other parties to say how often you should be doing this excavation work or whatever. If we get West Berks on the hook for it, though, then hopefully we can go back to them on a regular basis for some money. But I think we have to assume, and we have to let the village know, that this is an ongoing problem, and it's not just one fix and it's okay for the next 25 years.
Yep.
That sounds a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
Fen, so where I'm at on the slightly pessimistic side of the world is it's 25 grand to do the whole job. We've already got, so we've got a deficit of 14, as we talked about, which is approximately what you've applied for. I'd be recommending we ask for 7, on the basis that if we get the grant, then next year what we do is we whack precept back down by 3 or 4 grand.
Yep.
Because as you said, it will never go back down to 14, but we've also got to remember we have to build up reserves for playground maintenance and on an ongoing basis. We've got to build up the fact this is going to keep happening every 5 years. So I think, you know, were we to, as you said, have put the precept up by £14,000, I think we'd be really struggling with everybody to say, well, my lord, in a year of COVID and everything else, should we be doing this? But I'm equally mindful that the damage that this could potentially do, as I said, there's 20 millimetres of rain going into Yorkshire tonight. From Nick's flood report, you know, they are talking about a damp January and February, and all the flooding happened in East Ilsley in March. So this is not the winter gone. And I'm just concerned that, as I said, if 15 only gets part of the job done, whereas potentially 17 with some do-it-yourself, some help from the village and what have you, would get most of it done if we got nothing from anyone else. While I don't like particularly doing it, I'm almost tempted to say, should we ask for just a little bit more, which is about 50% of the deficit we need to the 25, on the argument that we are hoping and fingers crossed, but we can't, you can't even tell me it's a 5 out of 10, an 8 out of 10. We have no idea whether we'll get a lot, we'll get nothing. And our timing is against us as well, because we can't revisit this once we get, if we could put this off until they've made a decision, you know, but I'm afraid we're somewhat in the sort of realms of Solomon here, trying to work out what to do with very limited information on almost everything, but equally trying to do the best. I'd be more than happy to recommend we put this up by 7 on the basis that when next year's precept comes, and depending on what has happened, we do our absolute level best to take it back down again. The only other thing I just wanted to quickly mention, because we talked about communicator and stuff like this, is whether we take it down from 6 to 5. Okay, it's only 250 quid, but we've got a problem with who's editing it, things like this. And, you know, I'd almost arguably sort of say, you know, if we can save 150 quid, 250 quid here or there or whatever, let's take it as well. So it's not just about increasing the precept. So anyone got any thoughts on that?
My view on that is, yeah, I like what Mike said there. I think it's really important, and what Nick said, the fact that once you've done it doesn't mean it's done forever.
No. So
education, updating the village to say this is whatever. We moved here in 2014, and there was the flood. So yeah, so what's that? You know, 7 years. So every 6 years, we will need to continue villagers doing this. So we know it's going to cost, we think, 25,000 sterling. So that means for the next 6 years, we need to make sure that we've kicked back a bit of money every year to build up to 25 grand, let's say, and hope it hasn't massively increased. I think that's the education piece that we need to do with the village, and just let them know so that they feel like that it's of importance, because it is important, because you've got to be able to get around the village, and if you're flooded, you're not going to be able to get around. But it's just keeping them kind of on side. The communicator, that's a side note, but we hopefully have 2 people interested in doing it, so for free. So we will see further conversation on that. And then the other idea on the communicator, which I know is a side note to this point, is the fact of, like Andrew said, do we go down to 5? Do we ask more from the villagers to say, actually, how many people wants to get it virtually, you know, online, versus the number we're printing? Will that make an impact? How much would that make an impact if we reduce the number of copies that we're physically printing? It's probably peanuts in the scheme of things, but it's worth looking at.
Anyone else got any comments on this? Because we do need to make a decision, don't we?
Could I just flick back to the budget so you can just see that if I was to make this, so what did you say, Andrew? 7?
7.
So we're asking for 2335.
Fen, have we had the Baptist Church Sill money in yet?
We've had some, and we're spending it tonight, hopefully.
Fine. Okay. But it's in these numbers here, so we know it's in the bank for us at the moment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've got that on the earmarked reserves. Neil, did you have a query?
Yes. I've actually, you know, where we are located here at Ilsley Court, I've obviously got to watch the Pang Valley Flood Forum comments in quite a lot of detail, just to make sure what the risk is for flooding for the residents. And what I've done is, you know, from my background, I've actually created a map of where East Ilsley lies in terms of the Pang Valley, and we're fairly high up, but a lot of the silt in our pond doesn't actually come from the A34, but from all the neighboring farms to the west of us. It's a massive area of runoff that causes the silt to our ponds. I could share my screen if you'd like to have a look briefly, but I can show you that in 30 seconds once you finish this. Would you like to share my screen?
Bear with me a second.
Sure.
Oh. Right. Yeah, you should be able to now.
Okay, let's try it. Yeah. You see now where we're located here. That's Ilsley Court there, and you can see the Pang Valley, the boundary goes, the catchment area finishes up there. So we're down here, and if you zoom in closely, you can actually see the A34 there.
Yeah.
So this whole area, unfortunately, I downloaded this data from the Environmental Agency last week, and they're missing quite a few areas that I'm unable to get data for, but you can see the extent of the, all this is farmland over here, and it all comes down these dark areas. That's the river, that's the valley. And all of that drains across, well, underneath the A34 over here, and it all drains into our pond, essentially down here. That's Ilsley Court over here. So I don't know if that helps you with information in terms of saying this is not just a little East Ilsley or A34 problem. It's a much bigger problem than that.
Yeah, thank you.
So can we just quickly throw the budget? Thank you for that, Neil. That's really helpful because it really does put some scale on it all.
Yes.
Can we just throw the budget back up again? I'd quite like to, if we do this, bring this in under 20 grand.
Well, I've added in here 1,500 for the war memorial. Yeah. And I've put that in as contingency in case we don't get the £1,500 grant from War Memorial Online Trust.
I think we've got to leave that, Fen.
Yeah. We could reduce our donations, so go back to £50 for the wreath, because obviously we also had the rabbits, and yeah, I don't know what else to do.
Well, what does everybody think? Should we try and shave this 500 quid? So it'd be 19. 735 or something, or 835.
It make a massive difference, though.
Well,
Yeah.
it doesn't really, but I think it's the sort
the
of
visual.
it's the headline number, Steve.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you've gone
I-
from 14 to 20, it sounds huge. If you've gone from 14 to 19, it somehow doesn't sound quite as much. I mean, if feel free to
Well, hang on.
take some money off, but
Well, I'm thinking like Steve is, though. I mean, the only time where you see that as a number like this is in this budget, right? It's actually how it actually impacts individual households' pockets is
Yeah.
a small slice of that. So, Fen, what is the divide by on that 20k?
Gosh, it's a really horrible sum because it's done on
Is it-
Cat D, Band D properties. I don't know. There's a proper technical spreadsheet.
Is it? But it's about 500 homes, isn't it?
Yeah,
1,500 residents, 500 homes, or something.
yeah. I've just taken down. If we were to do 5 issues of the parish magazine, that brings our
Yep.
printing cost down to 800.
and we might be able to shave some off that.
Yeah.
Miscellaneous expense, you can't really do much with that.
I mean,
The hall hires, obviously, again, it's chicken feed, but still, what we don't know if we're ever going to go back to the hall this year. Who knows?
we don't know. The statutory instrument that says we're allowed to hold virtual meetings ends on the 6th of May 2021. And they've not.
Okay.
I mean,
Right.
look, I've put here common land, Presswell Field, fencing and rabbit holes, £1,000. Do you want to drop that down to 800?
Or 750.
So then that gives us, there you go, 935.
Just loose maths, guys. If you take 500 homes and divide the 20k by it, 40 quid a home. If you take the 21k, it's £42 a home. It's kind of neither here nor there if we're shaving stuff off, stuff that we wouldn't normally want to shave stuff off.
Now, the only quick question I have on that is, does it not, I haven't got one to hand, does it not show in the statement from the West Berkshire Council for your council tax how much it's gone up, how much your contribution as a homeowner has gone up in that year?
They do it as a percentage, so it gives you the percentage for the police, the percentage for the fire, the
Fine,
percentage for the parish council.
Okay.
So again, the key thing on this, depending on what decision people want to do, is before your bills start arriving, we will have to have sent round some information to the village saying, you know, we haven't done this without considerable thought, considerable research.
Yeah,
I think it's essential, and if we find some monies in that we don't know whether we're going to get or not, maybe we'll know by then, in which case we can commit to reducing it the following year. You know, I think people have got to take a view what they want the tax to go on.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about this current figure here?
Tracy, Mike?
Yeah, fine.
Steve?
Yeah, that's looks better than the 20,000 plus.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is, to be honest.
Mm.
And reducing it by these small incrementals, to be honest, doesn't really make a huge amount of difference. And if it's just for visuals, I don't see the point at all.
It's just sometimes people just remember, we'll look at the minutes. And
I have no issue with that, but
and they'll just read the big number, that's all. But yeah, Steve, I don't disagree with you, but I think equally, if all we ever do is we're trying to spend money rather than, you know, looking through, because if we do get the grant, and straight away with 1,500 bed aside, because if we get the grant for the War Memorial, fine, we may get the grant that Fen and Nick have worked on, in which case the whole thing changes. But equally, the village has to get used to the idea that because of where we've been placed, we're going to have to invest probably 4 or 5 grand that we currently aren't every year. So get used to this number.
Well, so for me, that's my point on this is, okay, then we ignore it all. Totally. We don't spend anything. We keep everything as it is, status quo. And it's on record that we didn't spend it because we didn't want to rate as a precept. And it's on record that we've done that as a parish council. But then if we have a massive flood and there are huge issues and huge costs involved, then those costs are there because we didn't spend the money that we wanted to spend and raise the precept by X amount. So
you're always going to get people who live higher up in the village who are always going to say, well, it's not going to affect me anyway, so why should I pay for it?
Absolutely, Tracy. Yeah.
You know, it's only the people that live around the pond in Abingdon Road, like we do, where the pan comes up, that we're going to be screaming when we flood. But everybody else up on Churchside and further up the bank, they're not going to be interested. They're just going to be saying, well, it's not going to affect me. Why should I pay another 50 quid, £40, whatever?
I think I get you, Tracy, exactly. I think the idea is the same when we did the playground. People went, I don't want you spending too much money on the playground. I don't have any kids. I've got lack of interest. I'm not worried about it. Same. You have a fair number of people in this village that say, well, I'm not beside the pond. I'm not near the pond. It's their home insurance. They would have known when they bought it that there was a flood risk. So why would we start spending loads of money? Why is it going to cost me, said individual up in Stanmore Road, let's say? And I think it's about educating the village, and that's through communication. It's exactly like we said, by the way, this is a big issue. It's going to continue to come up every 5 to 6 years. So by the way, behind the line every year, we've got to stick £5,000. Very simple, very clear. This is what we have to do, villager. And I think once we've kind of done that, I mean, it's just surprising that nobody came back, or a handful of people came back and gave us a view on this, because you know, we will hear about it if we didn't consult. We will absolutely hear about it. People will go, oh, hello. You know, as Mike said, which is true, they won't probably see the full number in their letter from Westbox because they'll just see a percentage. But if they look through the minutes, or if they've a vested interest, they'll start to see, well, we were 14 last year. Now they've gone up to 21,000. Interesting. Why in times of COVID? Why when I've lost my job, or I'm down to 3 days a week, or I'm having to go to the food bank? I mean, to be brutally honest, it's a complete education. I'm getting so educated over this COVID period of people that are actually having to do that. I would never have thought that in this village, but there are a lot of people that are massively struggling. And this would be a dent in their finances if we don't put some content on it. But we haven't got the time. We've got to submit.
No.
So
this is the problem. I mean, it's really interesting, Steve's argument, you know, from a sort of philosophical point of view, is you wait for the hurricane to hit and go,
yeah,
no one wanted to put it up. But actually, you know, having been here when we've had 2 floods, and remember, we're in a global situation where climate change is getting worse. It's not getting better. So 2014 was worse than 2007, but I think 2000 was worse than that. Maybe Nick would know better. This is going to happen. And, you know, to some extent, we're the people on the spot who are charged with making some sensible decisions.
Well, no, also,
what we did to mitigate, because as I said, we could put the whole thing up by the whole cost of the whole thing, and I think you would quite rightly have people up in arms about it. So I think we're being measured in that we're not doing nothing. We're not doing the whole hog. The grants, if they come through, will change the dynamic anyway, and then we can readjust next year. You know,
yeah.
This is how you have to run things, which is with lots of unknowns. So, guys, we've got to make a decision.
Yeah, flooding aside though as well, and properties around the pond, it is the centre of the village. It is the aesthetic. People are all around the village complain when it's covered in reeds and it's not functioning properly. You know what I mean? It's not going to be able to sustain wildlife if it's full of silt and reeds and all that kind of stuff and things as well. So yeah, I'm hoping that most of the village will kind of suck it up a bit and be able to help. But, yeah.
So so as we're not here all night.
I say go under 20. There we go. I say go under 20. Just under 20 sounds nicer, sounds better.
What's everyone else feel? All in favour of that?
Okay.
Mike, yeah.
19,935. So
I think that's got a good sound.
19,934.
We're going to ask for 2 lump sums of £9,967.50. I know that's pedantic, but that's how it works.
Yeah.
And we'll get the first lot in April, and the second lot October-ish time.
Right.
Super.
You happy?
That would allow us, won't it, to do the remedial work, which is the clearance, and get that process started, which is the bit that's putting.
So again, the other good thing is people will be able to see some action and will understand it. And as I said, this whole conversation may change in a month's time.
Yeah.
And in which case we then follow that up at the next meeting by saying, right, well, this has happened, this is different, but your pond still got done. We've reduced the flooding risk. And also, I think the other thing that we really should be pushing on is talking to the people who are responsible for the pollution. And, you know, whether there's someone we can talk to and say, well, why do we have to let their silt into our pond?
Yeah.
And making sure West Berkshire Council clear the gullies and the traps on a regular basis, because they equally, if by not doing that, they're making it worse.
Well, if it's all the farmland that Neil was saying, why don't we just go to the RFU? What about them?
NFU.
Them?
NFU,
Or NFU, RFU,
Yeah, I
NFU,
can't see
and
the
get them.
rugby people wanting to.
Yeah. Yeah. So get them.
I think my view is we carry on with all these actions. But I think in case none of them come off, we might have to have this reserve. And as I said, I think if everything came off and it was all brilliant, then next year we can come back and go, right, guys, let's take this down.
Yeah.
1,800 quid, 1,700 quid. But it's never coming down to 14 again is the key message.
Yes. Yeah.
Of today.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
We agreed on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Fen, and thanks Nick and Fen for the work on kind of the budget. So Nick, item 11, I think we've almost covered it, but if there's anything else you want to, is there anything else you want to add?
No. I think you know, my report pretty much covers everything, and we are being diligent around just when there is notice of heavy rainfall, I do go out and check and clear where we need to clear. So no, I think I'm not going to delay you any further.
Yes, thank you.
I do think though that the approach to the polluters is a good idea, and we can't get a result today or tomorrow, but I do think it should be on the agenda that they should be made aware that they are the cause or a large cause of the problem, therefore should contribute. But to the final point, it's all in the communication, and if we communicate to the village that we're doing this for the benefit of the village as a whole, then I think you will get acceptance, and they will see the benefit when we do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nick. And Nick, thank you very much for all your work on this.
Not at all. Not at all.
And we've now got this fabulous emergency coordination body of volunteers, which were originally set up for flooding and stuff. Yeah. We've obviously got some of the kit as well. So let's make sure, should we need any of it, we're ready to sort of let people know and
all
operate
it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
All right, I'm going to say good night. And,
good night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night, Nick.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, Nick.
See you later.
Okay, everyone. Item 12, to approve and adopt grievance and disciplinary procedure for the council. Fen, can you briefly give us the background to this?
Yeah, so they were published by NAUC, BAUC, and all of the associations got together and rewrote the grievance policy and the disciplinary procedure. So it's completely standard now across the board. The grievance just sort of talks about, should you have an issue, whether it's a staff member, a councillor, the clerk, a volunteer, there's a sort of distinct way of reporting and dealing with it. The disciplinary policy sets out the really clear stages of reporting, of meetings, of mediation, it's all really, really standard. And as we sign up to NAUC and SLC, we should be absolutely fine with it.
Anyone got any comments or any reason why we shouldn't sign up?
No.
All good.
It's fairly standardised. I would have thought so that'll be fine.
So I presume it allows us a duel of honour on the wreck with pistols or swords at some point.
Oh yeah.
Or dunking stool or something. Anyway, fabulous. Thank you for that. Item 13, consider assisting the primary school financially to upgrade the Wi-Fi and enable smoother online learning during the pandemic. Who's got some background on this?
Brendan, or do you want to do it, or shall I?
Yeah, so I know you can come in your dual role. So the conversation has arisen because the primary school obviously are, as always, trying to utilise the virtual environment that we are in now, but they're having difficulty in terms of their Wi-Fi speeds, and the infrastructure that is currently plugged into the school is really, really poor. So they've been questioning, asking and canvassing for investment and donations and so forth to help them to get to a figure of a budget to be able to afford to do the upgrade. So we've asked for, Fen was involved with you, so we've asked them to give and provide a quotation from a new organisation that they had originally gone to ask about what it would cost to do the works. And then our question is posing, we have a FIPS committee group which forms part of the school, so Friends of East Ilsley or Ilsley Primary School. So my view on this is, by putting this forward, was to say to the school, how much is it costing, which they've given us the quote for, and secondly, how much could we or are we willing to put towards that, and the balance they will find or try and find from their own reserves and through donations and through the parental body, the FIPS group, to see if they can support the funding as well for the project.
Okay, so shall I give you some costs then? So yeah. I've got the quote here. The switch and key, cloud key and Wi-Fi units and transceivers come to £1,310.30. And so I have spoken to Simon Barlow at West Berks, and he has agreed that we are allowed to use SIL money for this funding because it's of direct benefit to the community, particularly now with home learning and the schools being shut. So checking our earmark reserves, in our SIL 1819, we have got £968.09 in the pot, which obviously doesn't quite meet the 131030. So options are, we've got £1,000 sat in emergency planning, whether or not you want to do a transfer and take some out of the emergency planning, as it is an emergency situation with home learning, or whether you just want to offer FIPS £968 and say that's all we've got.
What was the total quotation again? So what was 1,300?
Yeah, 1310.30.
Okay.
So we're short by £342.21.
Using the SIL money is good because SIL money seems to be quite difficult to use.
Yeah, and we've had permission, so we've
had permission, so I think that's a given.
Yeah.
I think I have to say there's tons of money for this sort of stuff kicking around Greenham and stuff like this. Have they been asked?
I don't know.
I'm not being funny here, but why on earth isn't West Berks and the
it's
department paying for this stuff?
Exactly.
Because it's not.
Why on earth are we paying for this? Our parish money.
They can't. It's not on the capital maintenance plan. So as the governor, the clerk to governors, it's not on the capital maintenance plan, and it's only been a need arisen since COVID.
But this is a school. This has nothing to do with East Ilsley Parish. They've just asked for
some help. They've just asked for some help. They've asked.
It's a valid point, Stephen. Actually, it's very valid.
Because again, it's a bit like being taxed twice again.
Yeah, It is that, and I'm with you on that. My view is it a community infrastructure? Yeah, you know, is it a benefit to the community? Yes, without knowing the exact figures, there is a large proportion of the parental body that form part of the school and effectively allow it to open and operate that are residents of this village. So, so from that perspective, my overall view is if that's all we have and we're to agree on it, the remaining figure they have to find, you know, they'll have to find that money elsewhere. It's not for us to start moving funds around.
I'm happy to agree the money to go. I have no issue with that at all. But if people complain about their precept going up because of the pond, then I have an issue. So it's give and take. So, yeah, I've no issue whatsoever.
Mike, have you got any thoughts?
No, I think that I think FIPS have offered to help out because there's no other way of doing this, is what I heard. But.
Well, there is, but the FIPS have already agreed to pay the £720 engineering fee, the install.
Right. Okay.
So the actual total quote comes to £2,030.
But why on earth isn't the West Berks Council paying for it? Why isn't the Education Department paying for it? Is no one asking these questions?
Yeah, because to be honest, there is money swilling around for all sorts of projects like this, whether it's laptops, whether it's and this would fit under it.
Mark Brown is on the governors, isn't he, for the school?
Yeah.
Has no one asked Mark for some assistance here because he works in the Education Department?
Well, he's also on the finance committee, but
we've got someone who's on the inside who lives in the village. Surely can pull some strings. Surely.
As far as I know, the feedback was, bizarre as it may seem, and it absolutely is bizarre because we don't own the school, West Berks own the school, but they have tried with West Berks to get them to support this upgrade. But West Berks, through, as we would always expect, loopholes and so forth, are not able to support or they can't dot the I's, cross the T's on this project to be able to take it back internally. So they just kicked it back out to the school and said there's nothing we can do. So their approach to me mainly, and then obviously Fen is Clark, obviously for the governing board of the Illsleys, was about, is there anything potentially that we could help them to do? So when I saw the quotation 2,000, my initial feeling was, even before we got to this meeting, was, well, there's not a cat and else chance we're going to be able to fund £2,000. So what can we give them? I said, well, it's a question to put on the agenda to see what could we potentially give them, but there's not a cat and mouse chance we're going to be able to fulfill the full quotations. You need to find another funding vehicle, but we will try and help if we could, where we can, and because I think
the other thing you always get asked when you get partially funded projects of any kind is, if you can't find it all, does the whole project stop? You know, so if we are going to commit, it doesn't really matter how much. What guarantee do we have that the rest is going to be found? Yeah, so yeah. I don't know whether this is something that can be taken into an email decision at a later date once we know a bit more, or if other avenues have been. You know, I'd like to know that the Greenham COVID fund had been approached, a whole lot. Yeah. Or even if it's fund matched, you know, if they've got 700 quid to spend, well, I'm pretty confident Greenham would give them the other 700. It absolutely is COVID. It absolutely is young people. You know, there is money to be had, but someone's got to fill a form in. Okay, but equally, so I do want to help. You know, I'm not saying absolutely no, but I'm just aware that, as you've said, Brendan, we're you know, we're dropping an issue of the bloody communicator, save a couple of £100 quid.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
And this sort of thing. And
It's
Yeah.
worth going back, Andrew. Let us just do a little bit more
I mean,
homework. on it.
I think in principle, you know, we're keen to help, but with where we are in the cycle of things, you know, Greenham has got more money than God. You know, their
Yeah.
COVID fund keeps raising money. Let's ask them the question. If they say no, then, you know, we can then go, well, in that case, or maybe they'll match them, or maybe they'll pay for the whole lot.
It's Vodafone.
Yeah.
Go to Vodafone.
Vodafone.
Yeah, if you work for Vodafone, there was always that fund matching thing, because Andy used to do that for the sheep
Yeah.
fair. He had
I mean, they do
500 quid a
charity
year.
thing.
Anyway, could we
Yeah,
just
let's
ask,
take it back. We'll take it back and
and then
go.
if necessary, we'll come back with some email decisions, I think. Is that okay, Fen?
Yeah, fine.
Fine. Cool.
Real, thanks everyone. The next one, 14, litter pick around the spring if it's socially distanced, I guess.
But I said that it needs to be done sooner than later, because by the time the spring comes, you won't be able to see it.
Yeah.
So Graham and I said we would go out one weekend when we have better, you know, very soon, when we have a bit better weather, and anybody else that wants to join. But it needs to be done soon.
Yeah, this used to be something the West Berkshire Council helped with, and you know, they'd drop off litter picking stuff. They then pick the stuff up if it was parked by the pond.
Well, they still do that, didn't they, Fen? Because they will still pick up one.
Yeah, we've got all our own stuff.
Yeah, we've got our own stuff now.
Yeah, when it's piled up, we just ring them and they come and pick it up. So it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Obviously, in national lockdown, is that an essential journey?
Yeah, that equally is a bit of a, and with so few people being vaccinated and what have you, you know, we don't want to turn it into a super spreader event. But
well,
equally,
no, it would only be me and Graham. I mean, it would
no, well,
only be me.
I'm wondering if, you know, effectively, if necessary, we have to try and almost do it as a community event, but we do it as a relay, you know, where a couple of people do an hour and a couple others do an hour, and maybe we do it like that. That might be quite nice, but weird.
Yeah, it needs doing soon, though.
Okay. So what are we saying, everyone?
Tracy, we to communicate about it. If you want me to put anything up, we can, but we obviously got to do our risk assessments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we'll talk about that and sort it out.
Brilliant. Okay.
Okay.
To present the council, the clerk's report, Fen.
Yeah. So you would have seen December and January finances. Good news is that the first VAT refunds come in, so we got 5,186 on the 4th of January.
Brilliant. Another 5 of them will be laughing.
Yeah, so we got another 3.5 going to come in at the end of March. That's good. So yeah, current accounts up to about 13.5 at the moment, and we've still got 24 sat in our deposit account. I'm not going to touch too much on finance because I think we've had finance heavy today, so we'll leave it at that. I have some bad news, but with a little silver ray of lining.
Oh, throw us the bad news to start with.
Do you remember my nice shiny laptop you bought for me in April last year?
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, I don't know if you remember, before I was about to go on holiday that got cancelled, I phoned you up in tears because it wasn't working.
Yes.
And then I got it to work again. And then it's broken again. So I logged the call with John Lewis.
Yes.
Who, because it was within the year, passed me to Dell.
Yes.
And Dell sent out an engineer to my house on Monday.
Okay.
Weird. I had all the windows open. Everyone had masks on, and I anti-backed the entire place. He replaced the screen on the laptop.
Okay.
And all under warranty. But when he got the screen out, he realised that they'd sent a black screen rather than a white screen. And obviously, it looks rubbish. So he said, well, don't worry, I'll come back this week and bring the right one. So he was supposed to come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Essentially, he didn't turn up. So I phoned them yesterday, and it turns out that because these screens are so rubbish, they don't make them anymore. So it's an end-of-life product, and my laptop is officially classified as broken.
Okay.
And they want to offer us a full refund.
Woohoo!
Which is bonkers, but
nice.
So
Is it still working with the wrong coloured screen?
I thought it was, but I tried to use it today and it's flashing black.
That's a bad look for computers. I'm not an expert.
Obviously, because the Zoom is run through the webcam here, I would be constantly flickering, which would just be awful. And I sat in front of it for about 5 minutes. So I'm currently on my church laptop now.
Until I can see the halo.
So I need to ask, A, are you happy that I proceed with a full refund?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's obviously useless. And
Yeah.
B, I'm going to need to go and buy a new laptop.
Yeah.
With this money that we've got back. So I'm going to avoid Dell like the plague. And I'm going to go and look at a HP one with the same spec.
In the sale.
Well, there is at the moment £200 off in the place that you really don't like, Andrew. PC World.
See, the only thing I will say is that by doing it with John Lewis, you've ended up with full refund. Whereas doing it in the other place, you would have ended up with, well, just send it away for 8 weeks.
Yeah, okay. Well, what I'll do is I don't want to take up any more of this time.
Cool.
I'm going to have a look for some options and send some stuff through to you on email once I know what my full refund amount is.
Brilliant.
Okay.
But I'm pleased the warranty stuff worked. And it really does show that, you know, when the chips are down, you need to have people who won't mess you around.
Exactly. Right, thank you. I'll keep you posted on that. Right, I need to attend the Virtual Practitioners Conference 2021. The cost is £75 to members, which we are. I have negotiated that Aldworth Parish Council pay half.
Excellent.
Would you please pay
£7
like for half of me to go, and they're going to do a bank transfer. Well, I'm going to bank transfer from Aldworth to you, £37.50.
Brilliant.
You'll pay the full 75 and then you'll get all the VAT back.
I like the sound of that.
All in favour?
Yes.
Thank you. Right. I've got a weird email, Andrew, about West Ilsley cricket nets.
Oh, yes. Yes, he spoke to me. Was it Roger?
Something like that.
Yeah. Basically, they've worn them out again. I don't know what they do with them, but we contributed in the past from both the trust fund and possibly the parish council to getting them renewed. So he was sort of there with the begging bowl, but I did sort of explain to him that of all the times in the last 10 years to come and ask us for money, I can't imagine a worse time to do it, because obviously the playground, the pond, you know, the school stuff, the war memorial, it starts to look like a lovely optional extra that we can't afford, I'm afraid. Okay. And I'm sure that, you know, the TCCB with all their Sky money should probably be doing this. And again, Berkshire, Get Active, Sport England.
Yeah, there's loads of grants.
Yeah.
For sport. Should we just cancel that one then? Just
so
saying that if he zoomed in, I would have agreed to give him some cash.
Yeah, he maybe zoomed in last week though, Steve.
Yeah.
So yeah, on record, if he zoomed in, I would have agreed for some cash, not much, but yeah, you don't ask for money and they don't turn up. Doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, Fen, actually. There is, even the school, there's shed loads of money flying around for sports stuff. There's extra grants. So I'm sure they can absolutely get the money for the cricket.
I think we would all agree, if we were in a flush position we were 3-4 years ago, we'd have probably gone, yeah, no problem, but we really aren't in that place. I mean, just put the precept up by
what I'll do
more than we'd like to have done.
Andrew, what I'll do is I'll go through the January funding round, and I will copy and paste all the sports related ones and reply to his email.
Yeah, okay, right? But I mean, be nice, because obviously we do value the fact that the kids and folks can use West's beautiful cricket pitch, but this is just a bad time to be asking.
Okay, cool. 2 other things, we've touched on it already. The local plan review, we all need to do that. I'll email that to you all.
Yeah, and if she does come up with any pointers in terms of detail this section from East Ilsley perspective,
of course,
that would be helpful.
We've had another consultation come round. It's on the minerals and waste.
Yeah, they're just non-stop excitement.
I know, it's thrilling, my inbox at the moment. But I know that in Oxfordshire, they've massively kicked off over their waste and minerals plan. So I feel like we kind of need to be on this one and just check there's nothing to be anywhere near us that's detrimental to our area.
Yeah.
Because they may have identified a beautiful field on the downs where they're going to dump all the waste. I don't know, but we need to be careful. Couple more things. Do you think we need a second defibrillator in the village?
No.
Only if someone wants to buy it for us.
There's a grant for £200 going, but it doesn't quite touch the sides. So.
No, I think the phone box. The whole thing was just really nice as a project.
Okay, good. This is just an FYI. Our grounds maintenance contract comes to an end in March.
Yeah.
So when we meet on the 9th of March, we need to review a new contractor. I've gone out to tender to about 4 or 5 local contractors, including Jerry and the usual Schofields and a few other new kids on the block. So you'll all get a proposal before the meeting in March for us to decide who's going to be awarded that contract.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Little thing from me. I had an email from a nice lady called Jean. She walks to the field, the Millennium Field, for exercise most days. The new play park is great, but the access to it and the field have been very churned up by the work and the rotten weather, so it's very muddy and slippery. Quite a few oldies like me would use it more if the path was less perilous. Is anybody responsible for maintaining the path? Just laying gravel or chippings would make it a lot safer. Thanks, Jean.
I've seen her. I see her all the time, actually. She's, yeah. But I mean, I have posed that question in my head about who would it be? It's Millennium Green. It's the Millennium Green Trust. Is it a combination between us and them? Is it, who else would it be?
Is that footpath that goes from the top of Churchside down to the Millennium Green? Isn't that a West Berks footpath?
It's good old West Berks again.
Past the playground, yeah.
Because that's what she's saying. She's walking up and going through the stile and then heading towards the Millennium Green. That is West Berks registered footpath, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Right. Shall I see if I can get them to sort it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think COVID exercise and all that of a highly vulnerable group might persuade them to get their hand in their pocket. I mean, the amount of gravel they'll have just lying around.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
Brilliant. I think that is it from me.
Fabulous. Item 16, to discuss matters for future consideration and for information. Anyone got anything? East Ilsley fishing fleet? Anything else?
Nothing from me.
No.
No.
We don't want to consider a statue of the 45th president, no?
No, Christ.
Can I ask if Mike P has any, did you want to, like, do you have any interest in looking after a specific area of the village? Obviously we've got Stephen looks after the allotments, Brendan looks after playgrounds.
You can have a nickname on your jacket.
Oh, now you're talking.
Mikey P.
I mean, what kind of things are out there?
We've got roads, we've got, I mean, we could have a sort of community engagement officer.
We've got conservationist, sort of ecology stuff.
Yeah, we've got biodiversity.
Okay, well,
have a think.
As I say, to save a bit of time, let me have a think about it, and I'll.
Usually we try and play to people's strengths, so
okay.
So have a think about that. I don't know what about you, Brendan, and the playground.
And nearly put me into an early grave. That did nearly put me into an early grave.
Yeah, there's the casino and the spaceport, of course.
Okay, because when we get to the annual meeting, we'll kind of reallocate all of the sort of jobs. So it'd be really good if you got a kind of idea about what might suit you better.
Okay.
I mean, we do a lot of walking and stuff with.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
stuff, so
running. Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to take footpaths. Yeah.
Woohoo.
Full of dog fouling, but yeah, that's good.
Yeah, sold.
Footpath and poo.
Sold to the brave new councillor.
Yeah.
Oh, what have I done?
Oh, you're our new poop officer. Brilliant.
No, I did agree to that. I did not agree to that.
Excellent. Okay, so no other matters for future consideration. Any further questions from any members of the public? Have we any members of the public still with us?
We've got Neil.
Yeah.
He's still there.
Oh, well done, Neil.
Yeah.
I think you deserve a medal.
Yeah.
Neil, have you got any questions as you're the only member of the public here?
No. It's just my very first meeting, so it's very interesting. Thank you.
Brilliant. I've got a quick one for you. Is Hildersley are they getting COVID jabs as individuals, or is they treating you as a single entity?
No, they're getting as individuals, but most of them went today.
Okay.
And so there's, but those that are over 80, obviously. Then there's going to be when I don't know when the 70s will roll out. All over 80s are virtually done now.
Excellent. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So hopefully that will have cheered them all up.
Oh yes.
And they'll be feeling a bit more. But do pass on our best.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, everybody. I think we are done.